All right, so you're dreaming of like flour-dusted aprons, right?
Yeah.
And that sizzle of a steak perfectly seared. You're thinking about ditching the daily grind, trading it all in for a career in the culinary arts. That's awesome. And you found us, so let's dig into this pile of RoleCatcher resources you've got. All about becoming a cook, career guides, interview tips. We've even got the AI resume builder stuff. Let's get cooking.
Well, you really came prepared. I am impressed with all these resources. They really dive into what it actually takes to build a culinary career.
You really do. The first thing I notice is RoleCatcher, they don't just focus on the restaurant cook image. Like they talk about domestic and institutional environments. So it's not just restaurants, but maybe private homes, hospitals. I saw even a research station like in Antarctica.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is the guide talks about how a cook's job changes depending on the setting. So you're not just following recipes anymore. You're dealing with different dietary needs, you've got cultural preferences, even logistical challenges like limited equipment. Maybe certain ingredients aren't available. It's a whole different ball game. And it's not even just about cooking. This guide goes into menu planning, ingredient selection, even understanding nutrition. There's some real depth here.
You've got to be like a culinary chameleon, adapting to whatever environment you're in. Although I have to admit, when I got to the work environment section, it was a reality check. Hot kitchens, lots of noise, you're on your feet for hours.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher doesn't try to sugarcoat it. How do you prepare for that, mentally and physically?
It's true. Kitchens can be tough. You got to build up your stamina. But beyond just the physical stuff, it's also mental. It's about resilience. Can you thrive under pressure? Think about it Friday night, dinner rush. Orders flying in, you're in the weeds. You need focus, you got to be organized, and you got to stay calm when things get crazy.
It's like orchestrated chaos.
Huh?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of chaos, the guide also mentions technology. And not just the fancy espresso machines, but like automated equipment, ordering systems. Does all that change things for someone just starting out?
Absolutely. Imagine this, right? You program an oven to perfectly roast vegetables while you're prepping other ingredients. That's the power of tech in the kitchen. But here's the catch. Yeah, automation might take over some tasks, but it also means learning new skills, knowing how to operate, troubleshoot, maybe even program these systems. That's a big advantage in a modern kitchen.
So it's not just about like knife skills anymore. You might need to know some basic coding too. Wild.
Yeah, it's changing fast. And that actually connects to what RoleCatcher was saying about the trend towards healthy food, the sustainable stuff, the locally sourced
I
ingredients.
see what you mean.
Think about it. Farm to table often means working with whatever's in season, right? You might even need to know about like foraging for ingredients, really unique stuff.
Okay, yeah. Like knowing when to get those amazing tomatoes
Yeah,
in the summer for that perfect salad, or which wild mushrooms you can actually use. That's next level cooking. But
exactly.
let's talk about the person who actually wants to be a cook.
Sure. RoleCatcher, they list the good and the bad pretty clearly, you know, the pros and cons.
So the good stuff, you've got the creativity, the job stability, even the chance to move up in the ranks. But then there's the downsides,
Right.
right? It's physically demanding. The pay's not always great when you're starting out. How do you balance all that, especially at the beginning?
You're right. It's definitely a balancing act. Those challenges are real, for sure. But I think passion is a big part of it. When you really love food, when you love that creative process of cooking, it kind of pushes you through the harder parts.
Okay, yeah.
And remember those opportunities to move up. That often comes with better pay, better conditions, all that.
Right, right.
So it's about the long game, too.
You put in the work, you learn, and maybe one day you're the one calling the shots, designing the menu even. And I love how RoleCatcher, they don't pigeonhole you into like, you have to be this kind of cook.
Right.
It's like, the world is your pantry, now go make something amazing.
I love that. And while the guide mentions related careers like becoming an industrial cook or a diet cook, you can think even bigger.
Oh, yeah.
You could be a chocolatier, you know, a master making those intricate truffles,
Yeah.
or a food stylist making dishes look incredible for magazines, cookbooks. There's even like recipe development for those meal kit services. Huge industry. It's all about finding what you love, that niche that makes you excited.
Finding your culinary voice, I guess.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, RoleCatcher has these 4 stages of a cook's career laid out. Entry-level, line cook, sous chef, all the way to executive chef. Sounds like leveling up in a video game.
Huh, I like that. And it's true. Just like in a game, each level has its own challenges and rewards.
Makes sense.
So entry level, you're learning the basics. Prepping ingredients, getting used to how the kitchen runs. It's like building blocks.
Right, so you're not just chopping onions. You're learning why a certain chop works best for this dish or how to blanch vegetables properly. It's the why behind the what, you know?
Exactly. Then you move up to line cook and things get more intense. You're on the front lines during the rush, calling out orders, juggling multiple dishes. You have to be fast, accurate. It's stressful, but it's also really rewarding when those plates go out perfectly.
It's like culinary school's over. Now you're in the real world kitchen battling it out.
That's a good way to put it.
And then there's the sous chef, right?
Yeah.
The executive chef's right hand.
Yeah.
What changes when you get to that level?
That's when leadership becomes really important. You're not just cooking, you're managing other cooks. You're responsible for quality control, maybe even creating new recipes. The sous chef is the link between what the executive chef imagines and what actually happens on the line.
Okay, got it.
It's tough, but it's how you get to that top spot.
So you're like a manager, a mentor, a culinary conductor.
Ha! I like that.
And then finally, the peak executive chef. What makes them different?
The executive chef, they're the visionary. They set the whole tone for the restaurant. They're designing the menu, picking the ingredients. They're even thinking about the atmosphere, the whole experience for the diners. It's not just about the food itself. They're telling a story with every plate. And to get there, it takes years of experience, business skills. You have to really deeply understand the culinary arts.
That's amazing. It sounds like a dream come true. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about actually landing that first job. Because RoleCatcher, they've got over 120,000 interview questions.
Wow.
That's a lot of questions.
It's a lot to think about. But don't let it overwhelm you. The point isn't to memorize every answer. It's about figuring out what those questions are really asking. They want to see if you can solve problems, think on your feet, how much you actually care about food.
So it's not just knowing how to bake a cake, it's what you do if the cake falls flat, literally.
Okay.
Are there any questions from that giant list that, really stand out to you?
Oh, yeah, there's some good ones in here. Like, how would you handle a customer with a food allergy? A serious one. That's not just about knowing what's in the food, right? It's about talking to the customer, making sure they feel heard, making sure they're safe, but also that they enjoy their meal.
Right.
Or how about this one? What do you do when there's a sudden rush during dinner service? That shows if you can stay calm when things get crazy. Can you prioritize? Can you work fast but still do a good job? That's what interviewers want to know.
It's like they're saying, show us you can handle the heat. And not just the stovetop kind. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI feedback comes in handy, right?
Exactly.
It's like having a culinary career coach right in your pocket,
Yeah.
helping you come up with the perfect answers.
Exactly. The AI looks at your answers, tells you what needs work, and even suggests ways to make your skills and experience sound even better.
Okay, I'm convinced. RoleCatcher sounds amazing for anyone serious about a culinary career. But let's step back for a second. Say you've got this passion for food. Maybe you even dream of opening your own place someday.
Yeah, I love that.
How does starting as a cook, how does that fit into the bigger picture?
Think of it as like building the foundation. Every dish you learn to make, every technique, every customer you talk to, it all adds up.
Okay.
You're learning the business from the ground up. You learn how a kitchen works, the rhythm of everything, teamwork, how important communication is, all that.
So even if you aren't designing a menu yet, you're still getting experience that'll help you later on.
Exactly. And don't forget about just watching, paying attention.
Like what?
How's the kitchen managed? How do they create the menu? How does the whole business work? Those are things you'll need to know when you're in charge.
It's like you're secretly getting an MBA in restaurant management. At the same time, you're learning how to make the perfect risotto.
There you go.
But speaking of perfecting your craft, there are so many different paths in the culinary world. It can be tough to choose, right?
Oh, for sure.
Any advice for our listeners who are feeling a little lost? Maybe feeling like they're in over their heads?
Yeah, the culinary world is huge. So many possibilities. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, try thinking of it like an adventure.
Okay, I like that.
My advice, ask yourself one question. If you could only cook one dish for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That's interesting. It's more than just your favorite food, isn't it?
Right.
It's deeper than that.
Exactly. Is it a perfectly cooked steak? Shows you know your techniques, that you like big flavors. Or maybe it's a salad, really bright and colorful, that shows you care about fresh food using local ingredients.
Right.
Maybe it's a simple soup, something that reminds you of home, that says you like to take care of people and nourish them.
Wow. Yeah, that one dish, it's like a window into your whole approach to cooking.
Exactly. And the best part, There's no wrong answer. The important thing is to listen to yourself, follow your passion, and never stop being curious about food, about all the amazing things you can do with it.
That's great advice. So to all our listeners out there who want to be cooks, we say go for it, experiment. Don't be afraid to mess up sometimes. And most importantly, remember why you started cooking in the first place. That love of food, that joy of creating something delicious, hold on to that. This deep dive might be over, but your culinary journey is just beginning. Keep cooking, keep learning, and keep tasting.